Hi, Mike. Good to see you here so quickly. Yeah, I had to go and do something else for a bit, and that was why I left early. But then after coming back, I saw you guys, and I saw that that the stream had been um, ended, and um, and I saw that you probably wanted to continue talking, so I gave this link also to Sam, who may join us, but if he doesn't, that's okay because I'm still here. And before you arrive, before you join me, Mike, I'm going to repeat my position that I don't think I did in the previous stream about Zionism. So basically, on the question of Zionism, there are many forms, and they are all regarded as in some way illegitimate by Jews and Gentiles. But we have to accept the reality that the moment you are exiled from your homeland, you'll want to go back. And obviously, um, this desire is understandable. And, and so, whether or not Jews legitimately moved back into Israel when the state of Israel was founded, it's actually irrelevant according to land law, because under the rule of squatters' rights, also known as adverse possession, even a squatter can one day acquire the freehold of the property he is squatting on. And in these matters, we're talking about competing rights. Who was there first? Who was illegally removed? If illegally removed. But the point is that people are going to suffer if they don't obey the rules, and that's what the purpose of the rules are. And you'll be asking, what rules? Whose rules? And I'm saying, of all the countries in the world that ought to be a theocracy, it must surely be Israel, if Jews are indeed fit to be God's chosen people, lighting the way of Gentiles towards a correct worship of God. Now, we know that secular Jews are about half the people in Israel. I know that Sam was saying, he was saying, what, 60 to 80% or something? We don't know. But we also know that the latest election in Israel was won by the religious and conservative Jews. And they discovered that they couldn't get their way because basically the Israeli Supreme Court, which is um, a bunch of unappointed liberals, get to veto laws coming from the Knesset. So we might reasonably conclude that that Israel is an American protectorate, it's an American colony, and the Israeli Supreme Court is the unofficial governor general, placed there by the State Department, and they're all, to a man or woman, liberals, and therefore not religious Jews. So we know about the practice of Israel regularly mowing the lawn, as they call it, which is really culling the Arabs. And this is what they do, presumably, to keep their numbers down and to keep the myth of the democracy going. Because if these people can vote, they are greater in number than the secular Jews who tend not to marry and tend to die childless, gay and transgender, there will be a problem operating democracy to be this, beacon of democracy in the middle of the Middle East. And so, in order to win the game, they have to cheat, and that is to mow the lawn. And they mow the lawn by regularly culling the Arabs in Gaza and the West Bank, I suppose. And will it be just a matter of time before the secular state of Israel regards the religious Jews as being part of the lawn that needs to be mown? We don't know, but we shall see if how things turn out. Hello, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going well.
How's the UK treating you? What's going on in Leeds? What, the gypsies are gone ape shit or something?
Yeah, people thought they were Muslims because they were brown, and then there was a bit of an argument about who they were, and they were the Roma, and the Roma come from the Punjab, so they originate from the Indian subcontinent. But it's a season of riots, I suppose. It's summertime, season of riots and revolutions.
Right, right. Yeah, I was pretty surprised. There was some guy, some English guy talking about like we don't do this, like I thought the Europeans riot all the time. Certainly the French and the Dutch and uh, the farmers. They love to come in and like spread manure everywhere, or spill their
Hmm.
milk when they're upset about prices or something. Um, Obviously, here in America, we have our share of riots. Usually, it's the blacks, but sometimes
Yes.
a sports team wins and people riot and burn things for whatever reason.
Really, America? What you have football violence like we do?
Yeah, yeah. There's kind of like hooligans. Kind of. I think when the Chicago Bulls on their Michael Jordan won their first championship, there was a riot in Chicago. Uh, it,
Hmm.
they just start. We used to literal football, not soccer, but football. Um, when there was a big win, sometimes people would storm the field and then tear down the goalposts. I remember when I was in Tallahassee in '96 when Florida State had beat Florida for like the first time in like 10 years. They literally had the one of the uprights of the goalposts like downtown, like parading it
Hmm.
through the. But yeah, when you get a bunch of 20-year-old guys together, sometimes things turn violent, especially when they're
Right.
drunk.
I never heard of that. I mean, I thought American football spectators are just known for being law-abiding people, unlike the British soccer hooligans.
It depends. In Philadelphia, they literally have a jail in the stadium because
Really?
their fans are so unruly. They literally they booed Santa Claus one time at Christmas. Like Santa Claus came out, and for whatever reason in Philly, they booed him. They were throwing like packed ice at him, like snowballs. But I think that somehow people had batteries with them or something, and they were pelting them with batteries and stuff. And it was Santa Claus.
Ah,
Depends on the
that's
city.
a little
Oakland,
surprising.
yeah, the Oakland Raider fans are known to be unruly.
Hmm.
They've stabbed a few people here and there, but here in Tampa
Okay.
Bay, we're pretty nice fans. We actually, I remember when Tony Dungy had left Tampa, and we won the Super Bowl, and then he came back with the Colts. We gave him a standing ovation, even though he
Hmm.
was the enemy now. But
Hmm.
yeah, you get in the Northeast and Oakland, they can be pretty unruly.
Right. And which team do you support, Mike?
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And that's the right. And do you have more than one football team in um, Tampa Bay, or
No,
is there just one? There's just
there's
one.
only
Okay.
there's only one NFL team in Tampa Bay. Yeah, we
Uh,
have three in Florida. The Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm in Jacksonville right now at my brother's house. We have the Miami Dolphins. So the Dolphins was the first team. I don't know when they got a franchise, but they went undefeated in 1972, which is a big deal, and won the Super Bowl. The Bucks got a franchise in '76, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars got a franchise in like '94 or something, in the early
So
'90s.
so why do you and your brother support different teams?
Well, my brother lives in Jacksonville, so he supports the Jacksonville Jaguars. I live in Tampa. I support.
Okay, so local thing. Okay. Ah,
Yeah,
oh, I see.
and
I
I
see.
was born and raised in Tampa. I was born in '69. So
Uh-huh.
as a kid, although the only games we ever went to back then, somehow we were in the NFC, which is the National Football Conference, right? So you have the NFL and then you have the AFC and the NFC, which are the two divisions or the two conferences, and then you have divisions under the conference. And back in the day, we were in the NFC North. So we were in a division with the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, and the Green Bay Packers. And my parents are from Wisconsin, so as a kid, we always went to the Packer games because my dad was a Packer fan.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
Now we're in the NFC South with Atlanta, New Orleans, and Carolina. They reorganized after there used to only be 28 teams in the NFL, and
mm-hmm.
then we got to 32, and they did a whole reorganization of the divisions. So we got put back where we should be in the South.
Right. So how many divisions are there? In the UK, there's Premier League, first, second, and first and second. I don't know if there's a third division. It used to be first, second, and third, but then Premier um, became the number one.
Yeah.
So,
So the NFL has 32 teams.
mhm,
We have two conferences, the American Football Conference and the National Football Conference. And then under those conferences, you have four divisions each of four teams each.
mhm,
So you have 16 teams in each conference, making up
mhm.
the 32 teams of the NFL.
Right.
And you have
And
four teams in every division.
right. And what for the so a division represents what? What
Well, if
just a part of America, just a corner of America. Is that what you're saying?
to some degree, it's fairly geographically correct now. Like I
Hmm.
said, so the NFC
What,
South is
northeast, northwest, south, east, southwest kind of
sure.
thing? Okay,
Exactly.
I get
You
it
have
now.
the four directions. You have the NFC north, south, east, and west. You have the AFC north, south, east, and west. It doesn't always make sense because I think Miami is still in the AFC East with the Patriots, the Bills, and somebody else. But it's three teams up in the Northeast, and then Miami, which is almost off the continent.
Hmm. Hmm.
But geographically, it tends to make sense. Like the NFC West is Arizona, San Francisco. Um, I can't even remember now, but
Hmm. Hmm.
anyways, it's kind of divided up. So if you win your division, you're in the playoffs.
Hmm.
So you have four divisions in each conference. So you have four playoff teams, and then you have two what are called wild cards.
Hmm.
So you can lose your division, but still get in the playoffs if you have the best or second best record within your conference.
Right, right. And so who's supposed to be the best team in America? Or is
Well,
that
I
a
haven't.
silly question?
No, well, the Kansas City Chiefs have won like two Super Bowls in the last, or well, the last two Super Bowls. So
Hmm.
they're considered the best team in America right now. I would say. Mahomes. I don't know. Have you seen Mahomes?
No.
He's like a half black guy with curly hair, good looking kid.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Uh, he's the quarterback. He could he'll be the greatest player of all time. It looks like at
Hmm.
this point, like Brady, Tom Brady. Have you seen Tom Brady?
No, I'm afraid I don't really
No.
watch much sport. But
Okay.
I guess the
Well,
quarterback is the one
he
who takes
was
the.
He was married to a supermodel, the
Mm-hmm.
Brazilian chick, Giselle
Mm-hmm.
something,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a good-looking kid too. But Brady retired. He won a Super Bowl with Tampa 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and then or 3 years ago. Then he retired. Then he unretired, and then we didn't even make the playoffs. And then he retired, and now we got a new
Mm-hmm.
kid, Baker Mayfield. But anyway,
Mm. So the
you should watch.
quarterback is
You
a
should
person
watch
who
American.
takes the ball and run. Is that roughly correct?
He is the guy who takes the ball first, yes, from the center.
Mm-hmm.
And usually they throw it now. There's not a whole lot of running going on anymore. But
Why
yes,
not? Has the game changed over the years?
yes, the game has changed dramatically over the years.
So
Uh,
why did they decide to not run and just throw the ball?
well, I would personally say that the defensive linemen and even more the linebackers have become better athletes. It used to be back in the 70s and even into the 80s and 90s. The offensive linemen were just big fat guys running into big fat guys on the defensive line. But now those guys are all great athletes. So back in, like, if you watch old clips of like OJ Simpson or guys like that, they're like just running around everybody, like they were
Mm-hmm.
such better athletes than everybody else on the defense. They could just take off running and run circles around them. Now the linebackers are almost like running backs. They may be 250 pounds, but they run, like a 4 or 5 40. They're fast and they can run the
Right.
runners down. So
Oh, so
so
they become all rounders over the
I'm sorry.
years. They
What's that?
become all rounders. I mean, I suppose there would be the guy that runs and the guy that defends and they're a bit slower but they're really strong and now the people are just sort of have more um
Right. They're all better athletes all
skills.
around.
All rounder, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
get what you're saying now that you defined
Hmm.
all around. Yes, the they all run pretty fast. It's not like the old days
Oh,
where the linemen were really slow and stuff.
right.
They can run the runners down. So now you got to
Hmm.
throw the ball. You gotta,
And did you play much when you were playing, Mike?
I played football through high school. Yeah,
Hmm.
I walked down at the University of Florida. I made the team for a day, but
Uh-huh. And what were you? I
I
mean,
was a
what
linebacker.
role were you?
Yeah, I was a linebacker,
Which is a defender. Is that
which is a
correct?
defender. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
right.
Uh-huh.
It's the next line behind the really big guys in the front line, the defensive line, then linebackers. Then you have cornerbacks and safeties, who are considered the secondary.
Hmm.
Below the
Hmm.
secondary.
Did you ever watch soccer, or do you
Yeah,
consider
I
that
mean,
dull?
no, it is dull, but I watch the World Cup when it's on.
Hmm.
I played soccer as a small child before I was old enough to play football. When I was 4, 5, and 6, or 6, 7, I
Hmm.
we started playing football when you were 8 back then. I think now even the like 6-year-olds play football, but
Yeah, I mean, I did try to get into it, but I suppose that the rules seemed a bit difficult for me. It's a bit like rugby, isn't it? The American football.
I'm going to say no. I don't think so.
It's not. Okay.
I mean, I've watched a little bit of rugby. I don't know much about rugby, but I mean, I guess the scrum kind of looks like offensive and defensive lining up.
Hmm.
I'm not
Hmm.
really sure. I don't know the rules of rugby
I'm
very
not
well.
really sure either. I mean, I think there was some rugby, the World Cup, and I tried to absorb the rules, and I thought it's so complicated. It's really complicated, and then so I asked a few men who were supposed to be rugby fans, and one of them just said, "I don't really understand the rules. I just know when to cheer," and I
Right.
thought that was quite revealing. You know.
Yeah. I'm not sure what they're doing. They got to lateral the ball back, but then they get to kick it, or they pop it with their hand forward.
Mm.
Football, American football is a little more easy. Like you line up, you have the offense, you have the defensive line. You can't be offsides, which means you can't have your head like over the football. On offense, you have to have four people in the backfield, but only one guy can be in motion. But the rules aren't that complicated.
They sound a bit complicated to me.
You're not allowed to hold the guy. If you're an offensive lineman and the guy's rushing, you can't just like tackle him. You have to
Uh-huh.
block him. Now
Right.
they've kind of changed the whole holding thing. You can kind of hold him if your hands are in tight in between his
Uh-huh.
shoulders, kind of. But
So overall, do you think the game is as much fun to watch or less fun to watch because of the change of the rules and the different methods of play?
yeah, they've gotten this whole. Obviously they're worried about head injuries and stuff. They
Hmm.
don't let the guys hit them as hard as they used to.
Hmm.
I remember even back in the '80s, my dad would be like, "Oh, they put a skirt on that guy," like roughing the quarterback. There's some really bad calls on roughing the quarterback,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
but it's still a pretty exciting game to watch. I mean, they're still flying
Hmm.
around hitting each other pretty hard.
Yeah. Well, as you know, that there are women soccer players now. Are there any female American soccer, American football players? Is there a move for that sort of thing, or are American women being sensible and leaving it to the men?
There was like a kicker for Colorado. Like again, and of course the place kickers aren't like real football players; they're like soccer players that
Hmm.
they brought in to just to kick the ball. They're usually little guys and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
but then I think she ended up claiming she got raped or something. So
Oh
I,
dear.
it kind of put the kibosh on female football players. Uh, University of
Hmm.
Colorado, maybe. But
Right.
no, it's funny if you watch what is it, Rebel TV on YouTube.
Hmm.
There's a there's a male rugby player who identifies as trans and plays in the women's division, and he's apparently knocked a couple of the girls out and concussed them and stuff. And so the Rebel News guy is like running up to him, like, "Hey, what do you think of it?" And like his lesbian wife comes over, shouting at him and stuff. Uh,
Oh dear. How confusing.
yeah,
It really shouldn't be allowed.
no, obvious. And he actually was a male rugby player, and the year before he decided he was a woman, he got awarded. He got awarded like hardest hitter in the male league. And then when
Mm.
he started playing with the girls, for again, like, well, just stick with the men. You're the hardest hitter among the men. No, he wants to go play with the girls, and he's knocking them out and injuring them.
Well, I guess that there are enough trans people to give them a league of or their own game. I guess.
Yeah, I guess that will ultimately be the whole open category of just
Yeah.
like whatever you identify as, you get to be in this one, and it'll all be
Yes.
guys who think they're women.
Or women who think they're men and let them sort it out. But we
Yeah,
don't
well,
really want to encourage them, do we?
no, I think. Did you ever see Ben Shapiro was on Dr. Drew with I think her name is Chloe. She's a kind of famous trans woman,
Hmm.
and he was a helicopter pilot, or still is maybe, who
Hmm.
was flying during the OJ chase.
Hmm.
He kind of became famous for that, and
Hmm.
he was friends with Bruce Jenner,
Hmm.
Caitlyn.
Hmm.
But so Ben Shapiro's called him Sir at one point, and he's a woman now. He's transitioned, and she's like, "You're a little man. I'll beat the living shit out of you," or whatever. He's like, "Oh, that's very ladylike," and Ben Shapiro's like a little guy, but
Hmm.
so this woman's like towering over him, and was like threatened to beat the crap out of him because he called her Sir. But he was saying, he's like, listen, my grandfather was delusional at the end of his life. He thought he had heard voices in his head. The radio wouldn't even be on, and he would claim the radio was talking to him. We didn't say, "Oh, yeah, that's great, Grandpa." We didn't feed his delusion.
Mm-hmm.
So his argument was like, let's not feed these, gender dysphoric people's delusions. You should tell them, no, you're a man. Stop acting
Mm-hmm.
like this or whatever. And
Yes.
the guy was going to beat the crap out of him. He's like, I'm going to follow you to your car.
Have you had any dealings with trans men or women in your recently ever?
I actually have. It's ironic that you asked this. It's still July. Last
Oh.
year, my family, most of my family, one of my brothers and my two sisters and their kids and we went on an Alaskan cruise,
Mm-hmm.
and so we left out of Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
The cruise was on Monday, but we flew in on Friday and stayed in a hotel. And I
Mm-hmm.
literally in 3 days saw 6 trans people. I was like, oh my God, what is going on? What's
Mm-hmm.
with all these trannies? Right? I've been in
Mm-hmm.
Florida for 50 years. I think I've seen one woman who's clearly a dude,
Mm-hmm.
but it's Seattle,
Right.
Then when we come back, my sister, who I live with, actually hired this girl from the neighborhood across from hers. She lives in a very nice neighborhood, and
Mm-hmm.
the even nicer neighborhood. Uh, this kid had gone through and posted things on everybody's door. I'm looking to earn extra money working after high school.
Mm-hmm.
It was a dude who thinks he's a girl, and my sister hired her or him for about 2 weeks, and then fired him because he's like didn't even know how to vacuum or whatever. She was a moron, but yeah, she was
Mm.
a trip. It was like
Hmm.
all
Well, it's
skinny
good of her to
people.
give a chance.
Yeah. My sister was like, you know. Apparently
Mm.
nowadays maids in Florida are making like $50 an hour. So she was willing to hire.
$50. That's not bad, is it? I suppose
No,
it sounds a
no,
lot, but
it is a lot
mhm.
for
That's
non-skilled
above
labor.
minimum wage, isn't it? I hear minimum
It's
wage is what, $15 or something?
no minimum wage is like $8 or something.
Oh,
California, they might national minimum wage. I think is still like it might still be like $7.75 or something. It's around $8.
right. Hmm. Oh, so it's different in each state.
Yeah, and then states have their own minimum wage. Yeah, $7.25 is the national minimum wage. When I my first job, I worked at Albertsons, it was a grocery store chain.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in Florida anymore, but I think they still exist.
Mm-hmm.
Minimum wage was $3.30 an hour,
Yeah.
and I got $3.50 because I worked in the deli. But that was like 1988,
Right.
so it's barely doubled. But yeah, nobody works for less than $10 an hour nowadays, unless you're a total idiot.
So who might work? I mean, people think, oh, being a cleaning lady um, is the most low wage job, but I guess if you work in a shop, is that low wage than being a cleaner?
Well, I mean, it depends. If you're your own maid or cleaning service, you ask whatever you ask for.
Hmm.
There may be people there's large corporate maids who might pay the people who are actually doing the cleaning $8 or $10 an hour while charging you $30 an hour.
Ah,
The
yeah.
fast food guys are generally the lowest paid. They again,
Yes,
I
yes,
don't
the,
know.
the
I don't.
delivery boys.
Yeah, I don't know if McDonald's is hiring you at minimum wage anymore. Like I said,
Hmm.
I think the market has. I mean, people literally will just not work and get welfare over working for $7.25 an hour.
Yes. Yes. So nobody's thinking of workfare. That's an American expression, isn't it?
That used to be in the 90s under Newt Gingrich. People talked about workfare, but you don't hear about it much. It's actually funny. Back in the 90s, I owned a 9-unit apartment building that I bought for my father. And there was this one woman I remember, Mrs. Coleman, and she was on what's called Section 8, which is subsidized housing. So
Mm-hmm.
her rent for a 2-bedroom apartment, she was like 19. She had like a 5-year-old girl. Uh, was $4.50 a month. She paid $7. The government paid the rest
Mm-hmm.
under Section 8. And
Mm-hmm.
so summer comes and her $7 check stops coming. I'm not too worried about it, but I was down there working on something. I said, "Hey, Mrs. Goldman, I see you didn't send in your rent last month." She's like, "Oh, well, I don't work during the summer." I'm like, "Well, no, I didn't really know that, but okay." So she was a teacher's assistant, right? So
Mm-hmm.
obviously school's out during the summer, and she's like, "Well, I don't think I'm going back to her." I think I said to her, like, maybe this year send in an extra $7 for 3 months while you are working, and then your rent will be paid ahead.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Well, I don't think I'm going back to work."
Hmm.
I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I think I can make more money on welfare than working." So I said, "Well, don't you think you should build a resume?" And of course, she said, "What's a resume?" I said, "Well, it's a work history, like
Mm-hmm.
to get a better job, you want to have this job for a while, and then, maybe you can move up,
Mm-hmm.
make more money." You know,
Mm-hmm.
concept totally evaded her.
Right.
So sure enough, she didn't go back to work, and then it turned out part of her condition for Section 8 was having a job.
Mm-hmm.
So then she lost her Section 8. So then I ended up evicting her. She smashed holes in the wall and did all sorts of things. But
Oh
anyway,
dear.
don't ever buy low income housing. Trust me,
Well,
you do not want to deal with poor people.
well, I mean, my position has been for quite a while now, and I knew it was going to be unpopular, which is basically to reintroduce slavery and um, licensed brothels in red light districts. And well, anyway, that would make secular Quranism distinctive from their kind of Sharia. So anyway, yeah, the more I think about it, the more it seems to me to have been a mistake to abolish slavery, because now you have the welfare state, and you're in this sort of, there's no way of getting out of the welfare trap. If you pay people not to work, then obviously to get them to go to work, employers have to pay more than what they're getting on welfare, or significantly more. So you're making it, you're putting up the cost for employers to for putting up their labor costs. And
That's right. I just now remembered. I watched your E. Michael Jones guy. Who is that nut? Where did you come across that guy?
you
He's like,
haven't heard of him? I thought he's the most famous American. I mean, I like him. I
okay.
don't
Well,
like
I've never
agree
heard of
with
him, but
him.
then again, I had never heard of the New Atheists as an atheist until I was on Muslim sites, and they're like, "You sound like Christopher Hitchens," and I'm like, "Who the hell are you talking about?" And I had to Google, the Four Horsemen and the New Atheists and stuff. But
Right, right.
yeah,
But
I,
but
I
he,
would I would go with he's a fringe Catholic character.
yes, I would
I,
say, well, you share the same background as he does.
yeah, and I still couldn't quite gather whether he was a secularist or not. He seemed to talk about America and being secular was kind of good. Obviously, he hated the Protestants, the Calvinists. I'd never heard Martin Luther said something about reason is the death of something, uh,
Um,
or that he had an affair. That Martin Luther was
well, yes, with the nun.
with a nun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, basically, I think he is the most skilled anti-Semite. right? I mean, he's well known in white nationalist circles, and he had this argument with Jared Taylor, who's always going on about low IQ blacks. But Mike was saying, "Look, Jared, you can't be, going on about race. It doesn't protect you. White nationalists do not have rights at all, but we Catholics still have a few rights." And he said, yes, whiteness is a category of the mind. But what he was really saying was that white nationalists cannot use their race as their religion because it will not protect them, it will not dignify them. While, if they decided to go with, well, anything else, I mean, Islam, Judaism, or even Catholicism, they would be in some way protected by the law because even the ruling classes of the West will, you know, pretend to respect religion by claiming to be a member of a religious group. I think that was what he was saying in a roundabout way. But I think a lot of the things he says goes over the heads of most people.
Well, he certainly knows his history pretty well. I'd never heard of Whig history before, so that was something new I learned.
Hmm.
He kept doing his alarm when you would say something. Beep, beep, beep. Whig history. Whig history alert. You're on the Whig history again. The first three times I didn't even know what he was saying. Like Whig. Then I thought he was talking about the Whig Party, under Washington, and the precursor to the Republicans were the Whigs.
Well, I think yes. I mean, the Whigs used to be. Um, oh, well, the Whigs became the Liberals in the end, and the Tories used to be, the old economy landowners, because I guess over the centuries, that there would be king, and then there would be barons who owned lots of land. Attached to the land were all these, few, what would you call serfs, and that they would control, a lot of men and armory and that sort of thing. And then I guess the economy changed into agriculture and manufacturing, and the Whigs were basically, the people who were the new money. That's how I understand Whig history, and I guess the landed gentry would be more attached to old ideas like religion, and the Whigs would say, why not? We want our freedom. We're going to try this. We're going to try that. And I guess the Tories are saying, no, 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 we don't think it's a good idea, but we can't quite say how. We just don't think it's a good idea. We have a bad feeling about it. It's that kind of thing. And I think it was the Whigs who liked free trade and manufacturing and, you know, uh, no
The nouveau rich.
protectionism. Sorry?
The nouveau rich. The
Yes,
non-aristocracy rich who created
yes.
their own fortunes through hard work. Yeah. Well, it's ironic. I was just actually, my sister-in-law put on the Hamilton musical,
Oh, yes.
and I didn't realize Hamilton had an affair with some woman, and then her husband blackmailed him or whatnot. But
Hmm.
Hamilton was wanted to create a new aristocracy in America that only landowners would be given the vote, and only landowners would have certain rights and stuff. It's like you can't give the serfs all these rights and stuff. It's funny. I just recently heard my dad was told a story about my grandfather when he fought in World War II and had, he had gone into Germany. Uh, he's actually got a picture of himself in the eagle's nest, uh, sitting on the ledge. But apparently, and my grandfather spoke German,
Hmm.
and he came across he was fishing in like a little river or something, a little creek, and this little German boy comes up and asks him if he's like a baron or something. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, only the nobility are allowed to fish in this creek."
Hmm. Or else you're a poacher.
Yeah, right. You're poaching in the king's woods, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So apparently, my grandfather wrote him a note by decree of Eisenhower, the You know, head of the Allied forces, you are hereby allowed to fish in this creek, and he gave it to the little kid. You know, and
Ah,
it was funny. Then my dad's like, "Well, you know, that actually has some merit because if you let everybody fish in the creek, you fish all the fish out, right?
yes.
You take too many fish, and there's no more fish left. You know? But
Yes, and we have this idea of hunting season and stuff. I guess that makes sense.
yeah, you don't want to kill all the deer. There'll be no deer left. In fact,
Or
Florida, it was probably like 10 years ago. We we did a bear hunt. But yet you haven't been allowed to hunt bears in Florida for 50 years or something.
mhm.
And, so they did a lottery and sold permits and then like the first day they shot like 200 bears or something.
Oh
And
no.
the season was supposed to be like a month long, and they're like, "All right, done." We're like, first of all, I didn't know there was that many bears in Florida. Second of all, they shot so many so quick. They were like, "Okay, let's pump the brakes on this.
Hmm.
Kill
Hmm.
all the bears."
It is. I didn't know there were bears in. I suppose I just assumed that they would be in the cold places like Alaska and
There's a lot of bears in Alaska, but yeah, we have black bears here in Florida. They're
hmm
small. They're not like big grizzlies or Kodiak bears,
hmm
but yeah, we have black bears. Every now and then you see somebody
hmm
eating some bear eating cat food on somebody's porch, out in the
Oh
country.
right.
You know,
Oh. Oh. And and alligators. Do you get alligators wandering into your home in Florida?
there's a lot of alligators, but not where I live.
Hmm.
We're too urban for. But if you go on a golf course, any big body of water, or not even big body of water, any kind of pond or whatever is going to have a gator in it in Florida.
Hmm. Hmm. Gosh.
So yeah, there's a lot of gators here, but they're
Yes.
not just relegated to the swamp and stuff. Every now and then one walks across the interstate or something. But
Hmm.
I live in Pinellas County, which is one of the most densely populated counties in Florida.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you
I,
don't get them in your home, but sometimes they're in people's pools and stuff. My sister has a pool, but she's never had a gator in it or anything.
right, right. That must be very alarming.
They're big and mean looking animals, that's for sure.
Yes. Yes, I saw a few stuffed ones in this antique fair that I was at recently. But yes, it's got quite a nice leather feel, right? And I guess yes, that's where all the leather handbags and things come from.
Yeah, alligator skin makes for a good bag. It's,
Mhm. Yeah. What did you
tough, but
have we
good.
spoken about the Trump assassination? The
No,
attempted.
no, I don't think we've spoken since they took his ear off.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would be remiss not to ask you about your thoughts and comments.
I thought it was hilarious, as any good American would. We got lots of guns, and every now and then somebody takes a shot at a politician. Uh, I think it's going to help him in the election.
Mm.
Uh, I'm not a big Trumpette, whatever. I in 2016 I voted for Gary Johnson on the Libertarian ticket, but 2020 I voted for Trump, and I'll vote for him again now. But
Oh, good. Oh, good.
it
I
probably would
guess
have
I
been
am a
better.
fan.
It probably would have been better for the Republicans if he had actually got hit. I think DeSantis could have swooped in and can beat Biden. I keep telling people it's amazing. The two main parties are running the two guys who could be beat by the other guy, right? Like the Democrats could put up almost anybody and beat Trump because the independents hate Trump.
I'm sorry. I thought people would be saying he's unbeatable. Isn't he unbeatable now? I mean, and there's nobody in the Democrats who could beat him.
No, he's barely beaten Biden, and Biden can't put three sentences together. Uh, if
You don't believe the election was stolen?
No, I don't think the election was stolen. Uh, I think the whole COVID thing with the mail-in voting and stuff, probably skewed things towards Biden a little bit, but not to the point of stealing the election.
Mm-hmm.
If you're that popular, first of all, Trump did have a good 4 years. The economy was, cooking along pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, COVID hit, and that made things strange, to say the least,
Mm-hmm.
for the election. But if you're supposedly that popular, you can't have an election stolen by a few thousand, you know, dead people voting or ballot stuffing or whatever.
Mm.
But
So,
the swing states are swing states for a reason.
yes, yes. Do you have any? Somebody I know in my online community recently visited Las Vegas. Um, do you have anything to say about Las Vegas and the way it's run and that
I've
kind of thing?
literally never been to Vegas.
Oh, you haven't,
I've
right?
never been to Vegas. Although my brother was just wearing his T-shirt for his 60th birthday. Apparently, nobody invited me in the family. I guess I need to get on Facebook or something. But my brothers and sisters all went to Vegas for my oldest brother's 60th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
I was in New Orleans once, and I spent about 36 hours at a blackjack table. So I'm kind of like, maybe I shouldn't go to Vegas ever.
Right, 36 hours. That's a long time. I guess you have the kind of mind who can count cards and work things out and
You
stuff.
try, but they do a six deck shoe, so it's pretty hard to count cards when they put six decks in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Did it go well for you, your blackjack session?
uh, I was down about 5 grand, and I ended up cashing out up about 3 grand. So it
Mm-hmm.
I kept chasing the money. That was one of my first real long gambling things,
Yes.
sessions. They say gambling is the worst, and that it's random reinforcement, right? There was the whole debate about positive versus negative reinforcement, but gambling is a random reinforcement. So most addictive thing.
Well, I listened to a documentary about professional gamblers, and they made it sound like hard work, and it's always you know your limit, never go to a casino drunk. You basically give up your social life because the casino's open, in the evening, so you sleep during the day, um, and and you have to work to very strict rules. If something happens, you do this. If so you don't go over your limit, and they made it sound like hard work, to the extent that it's not that much fun. And I remember when I was in Vegas, I saw this woman, with a plastic cup full of coins, and she was shoving the coins into the machine, and she looked like, well, she looked like a bit very overweight, um, Hispanic, chambermaid, and there was no pleasure in it. I suppose that was the pity of it. And she had dark circles under her eyes, and in those casinos they have this artificial lighting, so you lose all track of night and day, and so it was a very unglamorous look at um, people in the grip of
Yeah, I've
gambling.
I've never played the slots in my life. It seems like the most ridiculous thing to do. Just feed coins and pull a handle, and just and hope for the payout.
Mm-hmm.
When the bells go off and it hits the pan and it's I guess it's kind of like chasing the dragon or something. It's like heroin addicts. You're looking for that
Mm-hmm.
high again or something. Um, I generally play blackjack. I've played a little bit of roulette, and I played Hold'em. Since what was it, Moneymaker
Mm-hmm.
won the one big tournament or something. So
Yeah, I had an interesting thing with roulette. And being Chinese, I mean, the Chinese have a vice, and it is gambling. And
right, yeah.
this was a kind of um, my great aunt's
Don't you play
birthday or something.
baccarat?
No, no, no. It was a kind of roulette, party. So we all had to, buy the stake, and we all played. And I had an uncle who wasn't really enjoying the game because he was, just putting one bet on. He kept losing, and then he said, "Oh, play with my stake, because I don't know what to do with it. I'm bored with the game." So I actually put a lot of um, bets on the different lines and colors and whatever, and I ended up winning because obviously I was doing the right thing by spreading my risk all over the what do you call it, the number thingy, and I did very well, to my surprise. So
Yeah, yeah. You have like you can bet up the three lines of all the numbers. You can bet, you can do a
mm,
corner where you get the four numbers or something. I'm
hmm
not well versed in roulette, but there are some interesting bets, and of course, you know, it's all known that the house has the advantage. They don't ever
hmm
they don't ever put a game together where you get the advantage. Even blackjack is considered about the 49 to 51% or something. The house has 51% chance versus your 49. So that's considered like the closest to even odds there are. And then, of course,
hmm
when you play poker, you're actually not playing against the house. They just take the rake and you're just playing against the other players. So
hmm
that's
hmm
considered a game of skill by
hmm
most gamblers if you play poker, understanding the odds and whatnot. So
hmm
my
Do you have
problem
a
is,
favorite game?
yeah, Hold'em is well, I like Omaha too. I don't know if you ever played Omaha. It's
I've heard of it, but I'm not sure how it goes. How does Omaha go?
rather than getting it's a flop game, so you have a community flop like in Hold'em. 5 cards are up on the board, but you get 4 cards down as opposed to two. But you have to use two of your 4 cards down, and it's usually played as a high low game, which means the high hand gets half the pot and the low hand gets half the pot.
hmm
So
hmm
a wheel, a 1 through 5, can be considered low, but also high as a straight. But
hmm
you have to use two of the cards in your hand. Like one of the most rookie mistakes that Hold'em players will make is they'll have like the ace of hearts, and there'll be 4 hearts on the flop, and they think they have an ace high flush, but if they don't have
hmm
another heart down in their hand, they don't actually have a flush. So you play
Right.
3 on the board and 2 in your hand, and if you do high low, so a good starting hand, your 4 cards down would be like ace 2 3 double suited.
hmm
So like ace of spades, 2 of spades, ace of hearts, 3 of hearts. Because then if you get a 2 on the flop, your ace 3 in your hand plays as opposed to your ace 2. It's called you're being duplicated to make your low.
hmm hmm
Of course, you could have 3 spades or 3 hearts and make a flush, or if you hit an ace, you can make a full house.
hmm
So like if the board pairs, there's almost always a full house in Omaha, which you don't get in Hold'em.
Right. So it's sort of forming groups and collecting them, and it's like is it a bit like gin rummy? I'm afraid I'm not very good at card games.
I guess it is sort of like, yeah, getting groups of three, gin rum.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I I'm no good at that. Yeah, and there was just something very complicated called bridge, and a slightly easier version, and I was no good at it. I can't remember cards, and I guess I lost interest quite quickly.
Yeah, I've never really played bridge. My parents, I mean, they're in their 80s. They, my mother still goes to a bridge club like three
Mm-hmm.
times a week. They play bridge. Used to play pinochle with my parents every now and then, which is a weird. You get a deck that has like twice the face cards in it or something. I don't know if you ever played pinochle.
I haven't heard of it.
We
No.
used to also play. It's called Schaskopf, sheep's head in German.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of weird game. You only use nines and above. The deck is only 32 cards.
Mm-hmm.
You have trump, and then aces are worth 11 points. Tens are worth 10. Kings are worth 4. Queens are worth 3. Jacks are worth 2.
Mm-hmm.
Nine. Oh, I guess it's 9 8 7s aren't worth anything. But you play. Generally, it's a three person game.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody gets 10 cards, and then 2 go in what's called the blinds. And so if you have a good hand, you pick the blinds and you play against the other 2 people. And
Mm-hmm.
the goal is to get 60 points.
Ah.
And you win if you get 60 points. And if you hold them to under 30 points, I think you get like, if you're gambling, you get paid double. And then it's called no trick 'em, like they don't take a trick, they don't actually win any hand, like in Trump,
Mm-hmm.
then they
Mm-hmm.
pay 3 times to you.
Right. Oh, it's too complicated for me, I guess. I mean,
It's a pretty bizarre game.
yeah.
Queens are the highest thing. Queen of
Mm-hmm.
clubs, queen of spades, queen of hearts, queen of diamonds. Then it goes jack of clubs, jack of spades, jack of hearts, jack of diamonds. And then it goes ace of clubs, king of clubs, 10 of clubs, 9 8 7. And those are trump. And of course, you have to follow suit. If somebody leads out a diamond and you have a diamond, you have to play it, whether you win the hand or not.
Okay. Ah, all those rules. So complicated to remember.
Cards are good for the mind. Makes you
I
smart.
know. So obviously your parents are, well, I mean, to remember cards. Well, yes, it keeps the mind sharp, I suppose.
Yeah,
Do you,
yeah. You, you should be able to figure out who has what by what they play and at what point, and calculate these things and stuff. But
yes, yes,
yeah,
and I remember my grandmother, and they'd be gossiping, her and her friends, they'd just be gossiping and playing. So, talk about multitasking. Mahjong, I mean, they'd
yeah,
be,
Mahjong.
or other games even.
I was just watching Crazy Rich Asians, and they were playing Mahjong. My my sister in law is Filipino. Her mother lives down the street here.
Hmm.
Yeah, big Mahjong player.
Mm.
Got the sticks and the circles or something. I don't know. I've never played it. But.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like chin rummy, actually.
Right, right. You group things, right? You get
Hmm.
through something, or
And then when you got enough, you fling the things down, yes.
right.
And you say boom or whatever it is. Hmm.
Yeah, that's good. You Asians
Mm.
have some good games.
Hmm.
So you're Chinese by way of Malaysia.
Yes. Well, I mean, Chinese by way of China, but my paternal grandfather arrived in Malaysia on a British ship
Working the
as a
rubber
coolie.
fields.
I guess a coolie is just a sort of a Chinese version of indentured labor, because I mean, I guess the idea is, you don't have the fare, but as long as they agree to take you and you agree to work for them X number of years, and then after that, you can, do your own thing. So I guess that was kind of, um, you know,
Right. What did he do in Malaysia?
he started a business. I think I'm a bit vague about that, but yes, that was what he did.
Didn't the Brits have big rubber plantations in Malaysia?
Yes, yes. So they wanted all the Chinese. the coolie labor to, because the locals were happier to be fishermen and farmers and didn't want to work in tin mines or um, rubber plantations and whatnot. So basically, this globalization thing was the British moving people around, moving
Sure.
goods and services and people around, and
Yeah.
I suppose
It's funny. Years ago, I was at the YMCA. I was sitting in the hot tub, and uh, these they look like Hindus to me. Indians sat
hmm
down. I was like, "Oh, this is when Modi first got elected." I said, "What do you think of this Modi guy?" And they're like, "Who?" I'm like, "Modi, Prime Minister of India." They're like, "Oh, we're from Trinidad." I was like,
ha
"Okay." I was like, "Okay, you don't follow Indian politics?" They're like, "No, no." I said, "Yeah, I guess the British, shipped you guys down there to manage the blacks in the sugarcane fields and stuff." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, we don't grow sugar anymore." Like, what are you, crazy? And the guy said, "No, we we make money off of oil." And we said we export asphalt to
hmm
most of the roads in the Caribbean are built by this asphalt. And just recently on EF Dawa, the one guy was from Trinidad, and I'm like, "Yeah, I heard you guys have this. It's called the Lake of Asphalt. It's like a tar field, it just bubbles up, and they scrape a bunch off, and they ship it out, and it keeps bubbling up."
hmm
And the guy's like, "Yeah, we sold that to the Chinese." I'm like, "What?" So I literally Googled it. Yeah, the Chinese have bought it for like $50 million, but they just keep scraping this tar off the top, this asphalt off the top, and shipping it out to build roads in the Caribbean. But
right.
the British, shipped Indians like everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at
I guess the Caribbean.
Uganda,
Yes.
right? Gandhi lived in South Africa for years, right?
hmm
Or when Idi Amin was kicking all the Asians out of Uganda because the Brits had brought them in.
Yes,
I didn't think.
yes, yes. I think people are all mixed up now, or have forgotten who they are, or never knew. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, globalization has been going on, obviously, I think, since the age of exploration, since Columbus, since the
Well, yes,
1500s.
because the Spanish Empire was the first global empire. The expression, the empire on which the sun never set. I thought it was what the British said about themselves, and then I realised it was actually translated from the Spanish, who were the first ones to acquire global empire.
Sure, that makes sense. They were the first ones to this hemisphere.
hmm
The Brits may have said it before they knew there was a whole nother landmass over here.
Yes.
But, obviously the Brits still, I think, hold, the Falklands, Bermuda, uh, Hong Kong is obviously gone, but they have to have something in the Pacific there, you would think.
Yes, yes. No, it's not Samoa is American. There's something
American
else.
Samoans, American
Yes, and
Samoa.
I think they used to worship Prince Philip. I can't remember New Guinea or something. That there was a tribe somewhere in the Pacific that worshipped Prince Philip.
Hmm. Sounds about
Yeah.
right. I know who was it? Michael Rockefeller, I think, was eaten by some cannibals down Papua New Guinea way.
Yes. How funny. Vanuatu.
Oh, the island that's sinking.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, that's the Vanuatu. Well, actually, I think the island president was the guy from the Maldives who didn't get reelected for not being Muslim enough. But yeah, Vanuatu is one of the big, global warming. Their island's sinking. Tides are rising or water levels are rising. I think the Japanese are talking about building them an artificial island to live on.
But
right? Like
I guess,
VAN,
sorry,
like VANATAU.
Vanuatu. It's a volcanic island, isn't it? I mean, volcanic islands have a tendency to rise and fall.
Yeah, I guess saying the island's sinking is the wrong way of saying it. It's being flooded by rising sea levels. And what is it? Jakarta's sinking.
And so is Venice.
Yeah. Well, and they say Miami. And my brother just the other day said Houston's sinking. Although I Googled it and they said it's only going down like 1 centimeter like every 20 years. I'm like, well, that's a pretty low sinking rate. But that they've pumped all the oil out. I used to always ask that, and some people claim they pump water back in when they extract oil, but I'm like, shouldn't like Saudi Arabia look like a big, I don't know if you guys have like ant lions in the UK. It's like a funnel looking thing in the sand where apparently ants will walk into it and they'll fall down and this little ant lion thing comes up and eats the ant. It's like a booby trap.
Okay.
But I was like, man, you'd think Saudi Arabia would just collapse under its empty oil. Yeah, sinking island turned to court as they fight for climate survival.
So have you picked up any more interesting information from the Muslim channels that you've been trolling?
No, I should be over on Muslim Lantern right now. I was on COVFF, Coventry Faith Foundation, I think it stands for. Very nice guys, although Joseph the other night, I think I may have overreacted. I was pretty drunk at the time. I'm like, I think you just called me a liar.
Right.
I talked about the Battle of Al-Harada.
I don't think I even know it.
It's where Yazid I attacked Medina. Killed like 70 of the Sahaba, like the last Sahaba. Were all killed. You know who Yazid I is?
No.
Okay, he's the 6th Caliph. His father was the governor of Syria, Muwatta, or something like that. And Imam Ali fought the Battle of Siffin, and then they did a deal. But anyways, after he died, he named his first son to be Caliph, and a lot of the Muslims didn't like it, like the Battle of Karbala, where Hussein was killed, right? Ali's son, grandson of Muhammad. That was Yazid I.
Right.
But even before that, he literally attacked Mecca at some point. The Black Stone actually got split into like 3 pieces. He rained catapults down on Mecca, and he attacked Medina. I posted it in the back chat, the Battle of Al-Harra.
Okay.
And so the Muslim general, Muslim Aben UQBA, literally told the guys, you got 3 days, do whatever you want. Ransack, rape, pillage, whatever you like. And they did. So apparently there were several Muslim websites that said for years later, fathers couldn't confirm their daughter's chastity in marriage because they had raped so many. They raped 1,000 women or something in 3 days. So one more example of why Islam is not the greatest thing in the
Oh,
world.
come on! It's like Vikings never raped anyone, or
Oh, I'm sure Vikings raped lots of people.
it's a perk of the job if you're a soldier, right? The raping and pillaging.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the hadith of coitus interruptus. You familiar with that one?
Well, I'm familiar with coitus interruptus, but I didn't know that
Yeah.
soldiers would be so considerate to their rape victims.
Right. Well, the
Well, that
point
is
was,
considerate, isn't it? I'll
well,
rape you, but I
not
won't knock you up.
not really. It's in their own interest because nobody buys a female back when they've been known to be defiled. So what they're trying not to get their war booty pregnant because they can't ransom them back. It's like was the Hindu story of Sati?
Widow burning.
What's that?
Widow burning, isn't it? Sati is widow burning.
Right. So that comes from there was a goddess.
It's an Indian practice.
Yeah,
not a Muslim practice.
Outlawed by the British in 1837, I think it was. But yes, but the point was, it came to be because the goddess Sati was kidnapped by the monkey god, right? And he took her away, and she actually used her jewels to leave kind of like a breadcrumb trail. And her cousin came and rescued her. And so when she came back, and of course she's married to a god or whatever, and the people of her village were like, well, we don't know what happened to her. Well, she was kidnapped. Maybe she was defiled. Right? We don't want her to be our queen. So she told her cousin or brother, I think it was, maybe who rescued her, well, build a fire and I'll walk through the fire to show I'm still pure. And she does. And then the people are like, oh, well, that's great. You weren't defiled. And then she's like, well, fuck you. I don't want to be your queen. Now that you question my, purity or whatever. So it's kind of like the same thing. The Muslim guys didn't want to impregnate their war booty because they wouldn't be able to ransom them back to their people because, that's a big deal back in the day.
Well, I thought Sati was, your husband's dead. There's no point you hanging around. Goodbye. You might as well die with him.
Yeah, well, that's what it morphed into. And it's generally believed that the problem was when you forced women to marry men, the women would sometimes poison the men, right? I think that just happened in Nigeria about 5 or 6 years ago, right? This 13-year-old girl was, Muslim girl, wed to this 50-year-old man. So she poisoned the rice and killed him and 5 or 6 other people at the wedding party. And then, of course, they hanged her for murder. But so when you have these arranged, right, not forced, but arranged marriages, sometimes the women resort to poisoning the husband that they don't like. And so then you come up with thing was, well, if your husband dies, you got to throw yourself on the funeral pyre. So it was to discourage you from poisoning your husband.
Well, the most barbaric practices, or the most cruel practices, you could say, are come from India, who, make a utilitarian bargain. It's sort of like the paying of the dowry, but by the female's parents to the groom is basically saying, well, the bridegroom can afford to wait while the bride cannot. So if you want us to complete the deal, then you have to pay us or pay for the wedding, something like that.
Sure. And there's there's like 5,000 women burnt to death, burning brides. You can Google burning brides. a year of Hindu women who are put to death because their dowry is unsatisfactory to the bridegroom's family. You know.
Oh, I hadn't heard of that.
You never heard of burning brides?
No.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Well, I mean, why do they need to burn? It's also called a rock band. It's also a hard rock band. It's an American hard rock band.
Oh,
But,
Burning Brides is an American rock band?
yes.
That may be, yeah. We have a guy in Tampa. His band name. He's a DJ or a radio guy. Is Pitbull Toddler.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever you hear a dog like shoot a kid to death, it's always a pit bull.
Mm. So which Muslim channel are you going to troll next?
Well, I see EF Dawa has an open forum right now. Let's see. Abbas,
Okay.
Aman,
Well, I
Keegan.
might join you
Yeah,
in
jump
trolling
on.
them. I mean,
They'll,
if they allow me.
they'll probably let you on before they let me on. Here, I'll post a link in the backstage.
Okay. Well, they sort of know me, so they might not let me on, but I'll see. Okay.
All right. Well, let's see if we can talk in the back chat.
Yeah. Okay then. See you soon, Mike.
Entering studio. Ooh, I got a circle
Okay.
going.
Alrighty. Talk to you soon. Bye,
All right.
everyone.